Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode, and in today's video we'll be talking about, or we'll be exploring strings, right? So in the last video we touched a bit on strings when we were concatenating strings, and this video kind of serves as like a follow-up to that video. So in this video we'll just be exploring a few additional methods or a few additional things that we can do with strings. And in the first thing, or the very first example I want to give, is appending variables to strings. So we did something similar in the last episode, but instead of appending the variable, we just added a value. And I'm just showing you guys this here to show you that, hey, not only can you add the value of a variable by explicitly stating this value, but you can also go ahead and declare a variable and then append that variable to whatever string it is that you have to join those strings together. So in some sense, I guess this could have fallen under concatenation, but I decided to keep it here. So it works either way. Either way is fine though, as long as you can remember that, hey, you can concatenate either way and you'll be fine. So in this example we have var, the variable is, and has a value of a name, and the variable my name, which has a value of my name is, and then we are saying my name plus equals to is. And what we're doing is taking the value of the variable is, which is a name, and we're logging to the console the variable my name. Now my name is equal to my name is plus the value of the variable is, which is a name. So when we log this, we should get my name is a name. Notice we have the space here, and that will leave a space whenever that will add a space whenever we concatenate these two variables. So let's go like so. Navigate here to my terminal, and we run this, and we get my name is a name. Next up, we will look at finding the length of a string. So let's move on. Now we look at finding the length of a string. And in order to find the length of a string, we use the length property, and the length property simply returns the length of a string. Sounds straightforward enough. Let's get to understanding the code that we have written. So here we have a variable called first name, and that's equal to Percival, and then we're now declaring a new variable, which is first name length, and that is equal to first name dot length, the length property. So dot or full stop or period length, and then we want to console.log first name length, and first name length will be equal to the length of the value of the first name. So if we head to our terminal and we run this, it returns the value of 8, because the length of this variable, or the value of first name, which is Percival, has 8 characters, right? So how about adding a space? So let's say I add a space here and I run this again. It returns 9, and let's say I add a space here and I go back and I run it again. It returns 10. Let's say even if I go here, it returns 11. So you have to be careful when using the dot length or the length property. It will count spaces, so just to ensure that everything is functioning correctly, check for empty spaces within the string and erase them, because that will affect the desired outcome. So let me just clear and go back just to show you again, and I remove all these spaces and I head and I do this. It returns 8 once more. How about returning the length of an empty string? So let me just comment this out, for example. Let me comment this out, and let me head right here, and I will say empty string is equal to an empty string. Both works double quotes or single quotes, but I just prefer to use double quotes in these scenarios. And I want to say length of empty string, length of empty string, empt. Wow, this has an h here. Let me just remove that. Length of empty string is equal to empty string. I'm gonna just copy this, Control C, and then go here, go fill out the E, is equal to empty string dot length, and I go like so, and then I do a console.log, and I want to console log length of empty string. And then I go to my terminal. Oops. Sorry, let me just copy this from up here. What's happening? Okay, my bad. Let's just copy this from right here and paste this down here, and it returns 0. So the length of an empty string is always 0. So you can keep those in mind. And yeah, that should be all you need to know about the length of a string. So moving on. So now we're looking at bracket notation, and bracket notation is simply a way to get the specific character at an index within a string. And an index simply refers to the position that an element has. So we'll touch a bit more on indexing when we're looking at arrays, but for now let's just focus on indexing in a string, right? So in JavaScript and many other programming languages, but since we're focusing on JavaScript, it is important to note that we use a zero-based indexing system, meaning we don't start counting from 1 but from 0. So within this 8-character string we have 7 index positions. So we wouldn't start from 1 and then say 2. We would actually say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's not from 1, we're actually starting from 0. And to help you remember this, we have some code here that we can log to our console to check. So we have the variable first name, and we want to get the first letter of the first name, and we use square brackets 0 because we want to get the letter that is at the first index, which is P. P is at the 0 index, sorry, which is also the first index. Yeah, so we want to get P, so we're looking at index 0 because that's where we start counting from whenever we're looking at indexing in JavaScript. So go to my console and I log this, and it returns P. Now what if, let's try 5 for example, and we log this again, we get V. Look, 1 2 3 4 5 6, so the 6th position, but because we start at 0 base indexing, it's 0 1 2 3 4 5. So I hope you guys remember that. You just have to practice it really, and just remember that we start at 0 and then we increment to 1 2 3, so on and so on. So I hope that clears up stuff about indexing or bracket notation in JavaScript. If not, however, I will link a video as usual, or multiple videos, within the description or at the end screen, so you can navigate to those videos to help, and hopefully they will be of use to you. And moving on, we'll be taking a look at string immutability in JavaScript. Now we'll be looking at string immutability in JavaScript, and string immutability simply refers to the fact that strings cannot be changed once they have been declared. Now, this doesn't mean that I cannot go in and remove the contents of a string. So let's say I have a string, my string, and it has the value of hello world, and I'll delete that, and it will be an empty string. But so that's not what it means. What it means is that I cannot change the value of an index in that string. So now what I'm trying to do is change this H to a J. I cannot do that. Now if we were looking at arrays, which are mutable, I could, but we'll be discussing arrays soon enough, so you'll see all of that coming in the future. But what it means is that I simply cannot change this H at the index of 0 to a J to change this from hello world to jello world, right? If I do a console log of my string, it will return hello world and not jello world, because strings are immutable. So let me go here to my console and I will simply run this, and you see hello world. So in order to change my string from hello world to jello world, we would have to declare it down here. Remove this, oops, remove this too. So I'm going to do a Control X, and let me copy over this, and we get jello world. And we spoke about this phenomenon earlier when we were looking at var and how the var keyword works, and how we can assign a variable, or declare a variable rather, and then redeclare, and the second variable takes precedence over the first. So that's how you would do it, but doing this isn't really best practice. It may cause bugs in your program. So just keep in mind that you cannot change the value at an index of a string, because strings are immutable. And moving on, we're going to talk about the nth character. Okay, so let's look at finding the nth character of a string. And the nth character simply refers to finding any character really at its index in a string. So let's say we have the variable my name, and we want to find the third letter of my name. We would say my name, square brackets, because we're trying to find the index, and what index we're looking at is index 2, because we want to get to the third letter, and the third letter will be the second index, because we use a zero-based index system. So P is at index 0, E is at index 1, and R is at index 2. So it's the third letter, but it's the second index. And if we do a console log, oops, what just happened? Okay, let me just clear this. Okay, there it is. So R, it returns R in the terminal, and yeah, that's pretty much nth character. We can do 7 turns L. We can do 0. Let me just bring up my console a bit. Bring up. Okay, good. So yeah, that's pretty much that. And also we can look at finding the last letter in a string is in a string's length. So we looked at the length property earlier. So let's say my last name, or var last name, is equal to Roberts, and we want to find the last letter of the last name. And in order to do this, we would say last name, last letter of last name is equal to the variable last name, right? And in square brackets, last name dot length minus 1. And because our last name has the length of 7, if we minus 1 from that 7, you would get 6. And because we're using a zero-based index system, we would only have 6 index positions within this last name. So if let me just comment this out and log this to the console. My bad. Let me just go like so. And let's log we get S, because S would now be at the 6th index position in the string, because we did the last name dot length minus 1. So all we're doing is taking the value of the variable last name, we're finding the length, so we're finding the total length of it, which is 7, and then we're minusing 1 from whatever the length is to arrive at the index, and it will arrive at the last index, which is in our case 6. So run it again just so you can see. Oops, my bad. And it returns this. So let me change this just to show you. So let's say my last name was Brown, for example. It's Brown. We log this to the console. It should return N. We log that and we see N. So it doesn't matter what name you input or what's the value of the string, but it will always search for whatever you tell it to look for, the length of it, and then minus 1 to arrive at the index. So in our case, this would be index. This is index 0, the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So N is at an index of 4. Hope that clears up that. and if not, as usual, I will be having some videos linked in the description. Until then, I will see you